Okay, and in this video section, what we'll be talking about is the first in, first out, which is the FIFO. We had a request to do a FIFO, so what I want to do is actually start it from scratch. And so what I've done is I've actually made a Patreon file. This is version 20, so it doesn't really matter what version you're on. Just know that it's going to be doing a file load and a file unload. So as you know, I'm going to change my task just because that's kind of the way I do things. Periodic task. I feel like if you can't time something periodically, then probably don't need to be. It's not controlled properly. So that's just my opinion. But I've seen a lot of trouble come out of continuous tasks. But anyway, so not to get too far into that, let's open up the situation. So we got a new rung here. What we're going to do is, first and foremost, we're going to look at where our file shift right here. You have a file load or FIFO load, and then you have a FIFO unload. Now, let's go ahead and look at and kind of analyze these real quick. So, first and foremost, we'll go ahead and grab that one, and then we'll go ahead and grab the load and unload. So, now the source is going to be the source, the data that we want to load into the FIFO itself. The FIFO obviously is where the data is stored. The control itself is the control of the name of the instruction. In this case, it's going to be the name of the FIFO, meaning you'll use that for the load and unload. So in our case, what we'll do is we'll call this FIFO, and then we'll do control. So that way we keep it really, really simple, right? There is no complex scenario to this. So we basically keep it as simple as we need to. And there's no real reason to, get it any further than that. So what we'll do is make sure we put that in the control. And again, that we want to share those two. That way, if we load in one, we basically want to unload in the other. So act as a pair. So you're basically, if you look at it, you're like almost taking in one and out the other, right? So, and you're using that under one control element, right? So let's just say our dent, in this case, we're going to use dents, right? We're going to use an array of data, right? So let's just say our array is going to be 20, but let's go ahead and make it first, right? So let's go ahead and say FIFO array. Okay, so this array we're going to put, and we'll make this an array of 20. So we'll put that in there, and we'll obviously start at 0. Actually, we need to put that here. I'm sorry. So our source, we're gonna have our source be like a timer or something, like a free running timer, because I don't really have anything else besides that. As far as like this is all emulated, so I want to basically just load in stuff that is free running, just to kind of show data being passed back and forth. That's really all we're trying to accomplish. So we'll just call that a running timer. We'll go ahead and, I don't know, put that at 5 seconds. That way it just constantly runs, and then we'll basically have it reset itself. So just basically a real simple scenario, something we can kind of just grab and say this has got some data into it, right? So we can take this and actually put it up here. So the ACC is going to go into load into our array, right? So our length is 20, right? So now we have our length of 20, and then down here we have our length of 20. So the FIFO itself, again, is going to be the data that we were loading. We want to load it into a destination. Now the destination, again, we can look at that. I'll basically show you real quick. In this scenario, you don't have to have, so this right here plainly shows that the array size, basically needs to be that big. In the destination size, you don't necessarily, you need to have the same size, the same data type, but you don't necessarily need to have, an array for that matter. Like, say for instance, you don't need 20 elements. You just need one tag if in that case. So we'll just put FIFO unload. And then we'll just, like I said, we'll just throw it in there like that. No real complicated scenario going on right here. So what I would like to do though is actually throw in some toggle bits in front of here, and I'll actually explain why. So we'll call this test 1, and then we'll call this test 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually download that. So we'll go to active, we'll go to the second, our processors in slot 1. So again, we'll go to download. We'll download this. Sorry about that. Okay, so now we have a free running timer and both of the EMs, which let's talk about the EM for just a second. The EM bit means empty. Okay, so if we go looking at this array, meaning the array doesn't have anything in it right now, it's empty. So, just so if you ever go to use that bit, it's basically meaning it's empty, right? So you have an enable, you have an enable unload, you have a done. Of course, the done is naturally a done. So if we actually wanted to go about and actually load the system in right now, what we can do, and let's throw in some one shots just to keep it honest. So I don't want it actually like overriding itself a couple times. So let's just throw in some one shots in there. Okay, so let's copy that and then throw that down here as well. Paste, pick a different instance of that one shot. Okay, so what we want to do, and let's bring that back up, and you see that the data that's currently in there is 0, right? So let's bring this up, being that it's really a short program, and let's go down here, bring this down here, and actually show that. And that way we can actually see everything happening. It's not very complex at all. So again, so if I toggle this, then it loads in a value. Now when it loads in a value, you see the position actually moved. It moved one element, right? So if I toggle it again, it's going to move another element in there. And you see why I used a one shot, because if I didn't, it would steady keep indexing. Now I could use the enable bit and actually, instead of having this and just say every time the enable fired, to go off the scan rate and basically load the whole thing in. that's, you know, a really fast way to do it, but I wanted to actually do this very slowly so that you could see the transition actually when it got indexed. So it's actually loading off a timer, you know, the ACC of the timer. It's loading it into position 2 now. So it's going to load it into position 2 because that's where we're in. So if I index it now, it's going to load into position 2. So you see it loaded into position 2. So now it's in position 3. So it's going to load in position 3. And this is basically almost, if you look at it like indirect addressing, this position is pointing at that destination in that array, right? So it's pointed at position 3 and then right there in the array, right? So it's almost just like, if you've seen my indirect addressing videos, then you know exactly what I'm talking about as far as indirectly it's showing it's where it's going. It's pretty obvious when you do this, you know, that's going to happen. Now that's the load. Let's look at the unload. Now the unload itself will actually take out, now we're in position 4, right? The unload, if I toggle this bit, will actually take away. So you see it actually unloaded. So when it unloaded, did it unload the last one that got put in? If you watch right here, you can see. So now we have a 2027, or we have a 4874. So it's going to load, it's going to unload whatever's in the array 0, right? Because again, that's the part that we're using. You see that right there, right? So, and obviously it's going to put it in the unload bit down here, that destination. So it's going to put it in that spot. Now what we can do to make all this a lot simpler too, and I'll actually write it out in like a no operation, is we'll put all the values in so we don't have the tag database down here. But in the same token, if we wanted to have this taken out, and we wanted to say every time the control indexed, so every time it went enable, then we had the test on, and it would just sit there and fill up data. So you see why I actually did that pretty quick, you know, as far as that goes. And now in that case, we can sit there if we wanted to keep moving data, because see, now it's actually done. So it's not going to move any more data. It's not actually moving any data right now. So what we can do, even though it's steadily, it's trying to index, right? So what we can do real quick is actually take this out, and we can actually come in and use the opposite. So we can toggle this and have it actually transitioning data now. So it's actually, now this is based upon the scan rate, so this is very fast. What I'm going to do is actually make another video to show you this a little bit more automated. But what I wanted to kind of do is show you the slowdown process and how the first in, first out worked. You know, the basic principle that confuses people is using a different control. Understand that you know the control is basically your point of, that's what you are controlling with these instructions, right? So you're controlling the position that you're using, where you're loading the data, based upon where you're at in the array. So if this control were different, then you would not be able to load and unload, because you would be looking at a total different element. Meaning the control, if this was a different tag, then these two wouldn't line up. That's like having, you know, having two different lines or whatever. I mean, you need to have these the same so that you're loading into one and you're unloading into that out of that same one, right? We don't want to have them different. So that's the main reason I kind of wanted to do this slowly and do it actually in front of you, but actually in the same token, come back and throw it full time and throw it as fast as I could, so that using the enable down here, shows you that you can actually transition the data as quick as you want to, as quick as the scan rate should be. And in our case, that would be 75 milliseconds. So, and you actually can kind of see that in the timing down here too. So, but we won't kind of get too far into that. What I wanted to do is kind of make the first introduction video, and then we'll make another video kind of a little bit more automated, so that it actually fills this this stuff up, and you actually can see the data being translated without having to look at the tag database down here. So real quick, I hope that was at least a good introduction, and that solved some questions that you had about the FIFO load unload. And know that this can be used in many different elements. Mainly I tend to use this as an array that I average something. I generally use this as an averaging, so I move a mass amounts of data and then I actually average it. Generally speaking, that's what I do with it, like weights, or either data samples that I collect from how much something's ran through the machine, or whatever the case may be at that given time. Especially like in the paper industry, you can actually look at the linear feet that's ran through the machine. So again, this is just a simple, very simple scenario. Just know that you are transitioning data that is in this case, a dent. So it's real data that's actually going through there. And these could, again, this is just a timer that's going through there, but it could be weights, it could be linear foot, it could be anything that you can possibly think of that would be a number that you need to collect data from, and use it as far as a load and unload as you want to, as quick or as slow as you want it to. You don't need to have it quick like it's doing right now. You just need to have it working, right? And I chose an array of 20 just as a default. I mean, generally speaking, I use an array of 60 or higher because I want to average something. So I need a mass amounts of data, and then I'll actually throw it in there and average it based upon however many elements are in my array. But not to get too far into that, I just kind of wanted to give you a couple of examples, and hopefully that kind of gave you a better introduction. Okay, so we'll close this video out, and then we'll pick up and start another one, and kind of get a deeper understanding and like another viewpoint of using this. All right, well, again, I appreciate you you guys being part of the group and everything, and hopefully this was enlightening and helped you understand the basics of a FIFO load and a FIFO unload. Again, our first in, first out. So again, thank you, and hope everything's going well.